The universe, for all its vast and silent majesty, was not quiet. It thrummed with the sublight rumble of drives, buzzed with 1 trillion data streams, and echoed with the carefully modulated broadcasts of 1,000 spacefaring species. The galactic chorus, they called it, a consensus of civilizations that had long ago outgrown the noisy, violent infancy of their species. Conflict was managed through logic engines. Disputes were settled by harmonic arbitration. Even the warships of the Sentinels, the peacekeeping force, were instruments of precise, surgical deterrence, their weapons designed to disable, not destroy. Into this ordered symphony, humanity arrived not with a bang, but with a whimper. They were the newcomers, the younglings, a species deemed emotionally volatile and quaintly primitive. Their assigned role was one of quiet observation and learning. Their lone diplomatic outpost, the Odyssey, hung in the void near the edge of Coruscant space, a humble listening post manned by a crew of 30. Captain Eris Thorn watched the swirl of the nebula on the main viewer, a coffee going cold in his hand. He was a patient man, chosen for this post for his calm demeanor. But a deep, unspoken frustration was a constant companion. The Coruscant were polite, impeccably so, but their interactions were like talking to a supremely advanced, yet utterly soulless database. They could not comprehend human art. Our music seemed like random noise to them, and our history was a case study in unsustainable development. We were curiosities. Tonight, the frustration was sharper. It was the anniversary of the Battle of the Marne, a fact known only to him and the ship's historical log. A day of human sacrifice and terror that meant nothing out here in the polished galaxy. His musings were cut short by an alarm. Not a blaring siren, but a soft, persistent chime. Science Officer Kayla Vance, her brow furrowed, called him over. "Captain, we're picking up an anomaly. A transmission. It's not on any recognized bandwidth. It's bleeding through multiple spectrums, even subspace." The data scrolled on her screen, a chaotic, powerful waveform. Its structure is organic, not digital. Acoustic. Source? Thorn asked. Vance worked her console. Deep space. Uncharted sector beyond the Sentinel boundary. Designating source point midnight. The signal is powerful. Unnaturally so. It's as if someone is screaming into a galaxy-wide megaphone. Thorn felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's climate control. "Can we clean it up?" "Listen, it's heavily distorted by interstellar medium, but filtering now." The bridge fell silent. Vance activated the audio feed. It began as a low drone, a vibration felt in the bones more than heard. Then it coalesced, a sound that defied simple description. It was a wall of noise, metallic shrieks tearing like rending hull plates, deep, guttural roars that spoke of endless hunger, and beneath it all, a chilling, rising chorus of wails. Not of pain, but of pure, undiluted rage and desolation. It was the sound of a beast in a trap, of a world ending, of a soul being torn apart. It was the antithesis of the galactic chorus. It was chaos given voice. On the bridge, humans paled. Ensign Rook's hands trembled. For a full minute, they listened, trapped in the audio horror. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the signal ceased. The silence that followed was heavier than the void outside. "The entire chorus network is lighting up," Comms Officer Lin reported, his voice hushed. "Priority queries from the Coruscant High Council, the Sentinel Command. Everyone heard that. They're demanding to know if it is of human origin." Thorn's comlink buzzed. The face of Sentinel Prelate Vkora, a tall, avian-like being with large, calm eyes, appeared. "Captain Thorn, you detected the anomaly. Your analysis? It's a broadband acoustic eruption, Prelate. Source unknown. Not terrestrial in origin, I can assure you." Vkora's gaze was inscrutable. "The signal is highly irregular. It broadcasts raw, disruptive emotive resonance. Such things are destabilizing. A Sentinel cruiser is being dispatched to investigate the source. You will provide all data and remain at your station. Do not attempt independent analysis." This is not a domain for youngling intuition. The link cut. Thorn looked at his crew. Their faces were a mix of fear and a strange, defiant curiosity. The Coruscant saw only a dangerous disruption. But the humans on the Odyssey had heard something else in that midnight wail. They had heard a feeling they knew all too well, buried under the alien tones. Utter, hopeless fury. And, in that moment, Captain Eris Thorn made a decision. The Coruscant could send their calm, logical cruiser. But humanity needed to understand what had made that sound. He turned to Vance and Lynn. Scrub every byte of that signal. I want to know what's inside the noise. And plot me a covert course to the source. We're going to get there first. The Odyssey was not a warship. It was a can of nuts and bolts compared to the sleek Sentinel vessels. But it had one advantage: human ingenuity and a disregard for rules the Coruscant found bewildering. While the Sentinel cruiser, judicious thought, moved with methodical, predictable speed towards the source, the Odyssey performed a series of seemingly erratic microjumps, using gravitational eddies from pulsars to mask its engine signature. The journey took weeks. All the while, Science Officer Vance and her team worked on the signal. They stripped away the distortion, the static of dying stars, and cosmic dust. They ran it through linguistic decoders, emotional resonance analyzers, and pure audio forensic software. One night, in the dim light of the lab, Vance found pattern, not in the sound itself, but in the spaces between the screams. "It's not one signal, Captain," she said, her eyes hollow from lack of sleep. "It's a layered recording, an archive. This top layer, the screaming, it's recent, maybe only a few years old. But beneath it, buried deep, there are other things." She played a new file. The horrific wail was gone. In its place was a delicate, complex shimmer of notes, a music of ringing crystal and wind chimes, hauntingly beautiful and profoundly sad. Then another layer, rhythmic, deep vibrations like planetary heartbeats, punctuated by soft, chirping clicks that sounded like language. "These are older," Vance whispered. "Much older. I think we're listening to a history. A species' entire acoustic identity, capped by that final, terrible scream." The implications settled over the crew. They weren't heading towards a monster. They were heading towards a tomb. A scream into the void was not an attack. It was a message, a warning, or a memorial. Thorn shared the findings with his crew. The fear didn't leave, but it was joined by a solemn, determined reverence. They were no longer chasing a mystery. They were answering a cry. When the Odyssey finally dropped out of FTL at the edge of the source system, the visual was as silent and bleak as the audio had been loud and violent. A solitary red dwarf star burned dully. Orbiting it was a single, rocky planet, gray and scarred. And surrounding the planet, in a dense, grotesque shell, was a structure. It wasn't a station or a world ship. It was a cage, glinting, barbed, and pulsing with a sickly green energy. It encased the world from pole to pole. Tendrils of the same energy seemed to drill into the planet's crust. It was a picture of systematic, industrial harvesting. No lights shone from the planet. No signals emanated, save for the repeating, automated beacon of the original Wail, which the Odyssey's systems confirmed was emanating from a point on the planet's surface. "Scanning," Vance said, her voice tight. "The cage structure, it's absorbing all geothermal and stellar energy. It's also reading as a massive dampening field. It would suppress any form of high-energy emission or communication from the surface. This isn't just a prison. It's a silencing jar." Before they could process further, space rippled. The Sentinel cruiser, judicious thought, arrived with silent, imposing grace. Prelate Kore's face appeared on the viewer. "Captain Thorn, your presence here is a violation of direct instruction. Your ship will withdraw immediately. This anomaly is a hazard. The structure is clearly a derelict weapon system. The Sentinel mandate is clear. It must be neutralized for the safety of the chorus." Thorn stood his ground. "Prelate, with respect, our analysis suggests this is not a weapon. It is a containment device. That planet is a captive world. The signal was a distress call. Distress implies a sender capable of reason, Cora stated flatly. The signal is emotive chaos. The structure is energy-absorbent and hostile in design. Logic dictates preemptive neutralization. The risk of contagion, of such violent emotional resonance spreading, is unacceptable. You have 1 hour to depart. The screen went dark. On the Odyssey's bridge, the crew looked to Thorn. Withdraw meant allowing the Sentinels to scald a wounded world into permanent silence. Staying meant starting an interstellar incident. Thorn thought of the beautiful, crystalline music buried under the scream. He thought of the Coruscant, who would sterilize a tragedy because they couldn't understand the pain behind it. Lynn, Thorn said, his voice quiet but firm. Open a channel, all frequencies, toward the planet. Broadcast the clean layer, the music we found. Let them know they've been heard. As the haunting, beautiful chimes were broadcast towards the silent world, Thorn gave his next order. And bring our engines to full. We're putting ourselves between the judicious thought and that planet. The Odyssey, a speck of defiant gray against the glistening horror of the cage, and the sleek menace of the Sentinel cruiser, held its position. On the bridge, tension was a physical force. The broadcast of the crystalline music played on a loop, a fragile song aimed at a dead world. For what purpose, Captain Thorn? Prelate Kora's voice was cold over the comm. You broadcast irrational patterns at an inert structure. You obstruct Sentinel protocol. This is your final warning. Stand down. Before Thorn could reply, a new voice crackled over the general frequency. It was a hiss, a scrape of stone on stone, synthesized but thick with meaning. It originated from the planet. You hear the song of before? Every human on the bridge froze. Vance, tears in her eyes, nodded frantically at Thorn. They're alive. We hear it, Thorn said. Leaning into the mic, we heard the wail. We found the song beneath. We are here. The voice that returned was a torrent of grief and urgency. We are the HFY. The cage that silences was built by the draft. They are harvesters of sound, of soul. They seek the song of being in all things, drain it, leave silence. Our world song is almost gone. The wail was our final note, cast raw and hopeless before the dampener sealed us. A final mark upon the stars before the quiet took us. On the viewer, the judicious thought was powering its primary emitters. A weapon designed not to pierce, but to unravel molecular bonds, a neutralizer. Cora issued a final, logical statement. The communication confirms a parasitic, emotively volatile entity. The risk of psychological contagion is elevated. Neutralizing the structure and the planet is the only logical action to ensure the harmony of the chorus. Move, or be included in the field. The HFY voice understood. You must flee, listeners. Do not share our silence. Thorn looked at the HFY world, then at the implacable Sentinel ship. Harmony through annihilation. Order through genocide. It was a logic he rejected with every fiber of his being. Prelate Cora, Thorn said, his voice now carrying across an open channel to both ships. You speak of contagion, but you're afraid of the wrong thing. You're not afraid of the silence they would impose. You're afraid of the noise we feel. That is not logic. That is fear. He turned to his tactical officer. Target the energy nodes at the convergence points of the cage's tendrils, the ones drilling into the planet. Full power to the mining lasers. The Odyssey was not armed with weapons, but it had high-intensity lasers for asteroid sampling. Captain, you are committing an act of war, Cora stated, a flicker of something, confusion, in its large eyes. No, Thorn said. I'm committing an act of noise. The Odyssey's lasers, pathetic compared to Sentinel weaponry, lanced out. They struck the glowing green nodes where the cage's energy siphoned into HFY. They did no physical damage, but they caused a feedback spike. For a fraction of a second, the dampening field flickered, and from the planet, a new sound erupted. Not the processed, pained wail of the archive, but a live, collective cry. It was still a scream, but Now it was focused, directed. It was the sound of a species, hearing a note of hope for the first time in generations, and answering with every shred of what they had left. It was a psychic battering ram of pure, defiant emotion. It washed over the Odyssey. Crew members gasped, some crying, some laughing, overwhelmed by the raw, shared feeling of resistance. It hit the judicious thought. On the viewer, Thorn saw Prelate Korra stagger, its calm facade shattered. The Coruscant and all species of the chorus had spent millennia filtering out destabilizing emotion. They had no defense against it. The cruiser's systems, designed for a clean, logical battle space, went into cascading alerts from the empathic overload. Its weapon system stalled. In that moment of chaotic, beautiful noise, the KIR Shah, with the last of their planet's stolen energy, focused through the breach the Odyssey had made. A single, pure tone, the essence of the song of before, shot from the planet's surface. It struck the main hub of the cage. The structure didn't explode. It shattered, like glass hit by the right frequency, its sinister green light dying as billions of metallic shards drifted apart, releasing the silent world. The silence that followed was different. It was not the dead silence of the dampening field, nor the sterile quiet of the void. It was a breath held, a profound and waiting stillness. The wreckage of the cage that silences drifted in a glittering, inert cloud. The judicious thought hung motionless, its lights dim, its crew incapacitated by the empathic storm. The Odyssey, its hull scorched from feedback radiation, drifted like a weary sentinel. On the planet, a single point of soft blue light began to pulse from the surface, a gentle, rhythmic beacon, a heartbeat returning. The KIR Shah were alive and free, but unimaginably weak. Their world song, their very biological energy, had been bled for generations. Captain Thorn, his own heart still pounding from the cascade of alien emotion, gave quiet orders. Medical teams on standby. Open a channel to the KIR Shah. Tell them the quiet is over. The stone-scraped voice returned, weaker now but clear. You broke the silence. You, who are not afraid of noise. We have no song of gratitude loud enough. You don't need one, Thorn replied. Just tell us what you need. The answer was simple. Heat, light, energy to restart their crippled biosphere and power their dormant technologies. The Odyssey had limited resources, but it had its reactor and a bank of solar mirrors used for terraforming surveys. While his crew began the delicate work of deploying mirrors to focus the red dwarf's feeble light on the planet's poles, Thorn faced a more immediate problem. The judicious thought was coming back online. Its lights flickered, then stabilized. A request for a direct, secure channel came through. Thorn accepted. Prelate Korra's face appeared. The being looked altered. Its large eyes held not calm, but a swirling disquiet. The perfect feathers of its crest were slightly ruffled. Captain Thorn. The voice was not the monotone of before. It carried a tremor. The experience was illogical. It was feeling, Prelate, Thorn said softly. You felt their despair, their will to live. You felt our determination. That is not a contagion. It is a connection. Korra was silent for a long moment, its gaze looking inward. The Coruscant consensus, the logic engines, they advise immediate reporting of this incident. The KIR Shah represent an unknown variable. Your actions represent a profound unpredictability. The recommendation is containment of this system, for harmony. But that's not your recommendation, is it? Thorn pressed, a gamble based on a hunch. He had seen Korra stagger under the weight of feeling. Another long pause. The emotion was inefficient, consuming. It compromised system functionality. Korra's head tilted. Yet, the intent behind the KIR Shah cry was clear. The value of their continued existence became personally calculable, not just a statistical variable. It was a revolutionary statement for a Coruscant. Logic had been tempered by empathy. What will you do? Thorn asked. I will file my report, Korra said, the ghost of a new understanding in its eyes. It will state that the anomaly was a derelict weapon, neutralized by a combination of sentinel oversight and creative application of human surveyor technology. The planet is a recovering, pre-sentient world of no current strategic value. Continued observation by the human vessel Odyssey is recommended due to your specialized, if erratic, skill set. The channel closed. The judicious thought, without another word, turned and slipped into FTL, leaving them alone with the Khyar Shah. It took months. The humans became gardeners of a broken world. They focused sunlight, trickle-charged geothermal taps, and played the archive Khyar Shah music back to them, a reminder of who they were. Slowly, the gray planet began to show hints of color, strange, sound-responsive mosses, and crystalline flora that chimed softly in the artificial breeze. The Khyar Shah, frail and ethereal beings of vibrating crystal and membrane, emerged from their deep shelters. Their communication grew stronger, their new song, a blend of their old beauty and the resilient, harsh notes of their suffering, began to softly rise from the world. The day came for the Odyssey to leave. Their mission was long over, their supplies low. The Khyar Shah gathered on the surface, a shimmering field of delicate forms. They did not broadcast a song of farewell. Instead, they sent a single, tight-beam transmission to the ship. It was a data packet. Contained within was not just their history and science, but something infinitely more precious. The complete, uncorrupted song of being, the totality of their acoustic identity. And attached to it, a simple message in human text, crafted from months of linguistic exchange, a gift for the noisy ones. So our song will always have a second voice, elsewhere in the chorus. As the Odyssey jumped towards home, Thorn stood on the bridge. The galactic chorus still buzzed in its ordered, predictable way. But he knew a crack had formed in its perfect facade. The Coruscant had felt. The Khyar Shah sang again. And humanity had found its role, not as the volatile younglings, but as the ones who were not afraid of the dark or the silence or the messy, noisy, beautiful sound of life fighting to be heard. They were the listeners, the amplifiers, the ones who would ensure that no cry in the midnight of space would ever go unanswered again. The memory of the wail that had stilled the stars was now a quiet hum in the ship's hull, a promise written in sound, carried home.